All right, so good afternoon. My name is Daryl Curtis. I'm with the Women in Motorsports Making Waves Facebook group, and my special guest is Kercie Jung. Kercie is going to be running our logo on her race car this coming weekend. I had wanted to do this to promote the group and thought that there was no better way than to put it on one of the race cars of one of the ladies that we spotlight in our group. So I'm here with Kercie in her home, in her magnificent trophy room. As you can see, she's got a lot of trophies, and we're going to have her tell you all about that. So tell us about your racing career, how old you are, when you got into it, all your wins and all that fun stuff.
I'm 15 years old. I actually started 8 years ago when I was 7. We started in the junior Minidorf, which happens to be the one thing that we raced for like quite a while, just because it keeps the age out just a little bit. So then
It's okay. No
I
one's,
get even with Daryl.
no one is a pro on this show.
Get even with Daryl.
So you raced mini doors from like 2013 through 2016.
Oh, I guess it was 2017, because there's another championship behind it.
And then
4 years.
Then you moved up to the next class.
Sent INX Bandolero and the Bandos, which we kind of shortened it because that's a mouthful. But we ran those for quite a while, since I was, I think, 10, when we held it out until I was like 13. And I think it might have been turning 14 when we finally started looking at the junior late models.
So junior late models. So for everybody who doesn't know, mini dwarfs are really tiny.
They're kind of like go-karts, but with a roll cage, seat belts, a full containment seat, and a body on it.
And then when you stepped up to Bandoleros, they're a bigger car, but they're not full size.
They aren't full size. They're about like half the size of a late model, and for sure half the weight as a late model.
But they're fast.
They are fast.
They're upwards of 70 miles an hour or something like that.
At certain tracks, yeah.
So you have won a ton of races. How many races have you won?
Think it's 101. Aren't for sure.
Let's count all the trophies. And
there's a few second and third place trophies in there too, so.
So I was looking at your statistics, and in the 6 years that you raced, you finished in the top 74% of your races. I think you won over 101 races. We know it's over 101. You lost count.
Halfway through, I think it finally kind of it might have started blending together a little bit, and when we went to go sign up for one of those things, finally counted the trophies, and it was like that. It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Okay, so how common is it to have in the mini doors and the bandoleros? How many girls did you race with?
In the mini dwarfs, there were more for sure. I think we raced with maybe 5 in one race a few times, and then everyone started moving up. But they moved up to dirt cars when we thought the better route would have been staying on the pavement and sticking to it. So in the bandos, I think the most we raced with were maybe 3 girls tops for one race.
So as you move up, you're seeing fewer and fewer ladies.
Yeah.
Yes. So you've won how many track championships? Because you've raced all over California, I know. So here in Bakersfield,
we've won 7 here locally, and then 1 out of town at Willow Springs. So then 8 total, and then we have a state championship.
Very cool. So in 2019, you moved up to the full-size cars up in tell us what you're doing, where you're racing.
So we actually race up in Madera Speedway, or in Madera, California, which is home to the Madera County Fairgrounds, but there happens to be a track in there, so we have Kenny Shepard, and he opened that up quite a few years ago.
2015, I think. 14, 15. It's
That's when
been
the juniors
around about
Yeah,
7 years now.
The juniors started 5 years ago, and we knew a few people that we raced bandos with, and they moved up to late models, and they kept bugging. They were like, "You need to get one. You need to get one." And we finally looked into it, and we got one in the middle of 2018, and we slowly started getting it together, and then everything slowed down, so we were for sure like the car was together. Now we just needed to go test. So we went up there and we tested, and I felt comfortable in the car. It's for sure a huge learning experience because there was a clutch. Still kind of getting used to it through almost 2 years. But it was like a huge jump from going into a bando to a late model just because, one, the size, and then you have the speed on top of that. But the clutch is a totally different thing. And we missed a few gears here and there, but it happens to everyone sooner or later. But we are racing up in Madera, which is about 2.5 hours away with the trailer, if traffic isn't too bad, because they are doing a lot of construction up there. And we're racing full-size late model with a 602 crate motor and a restrictor plate, and we only hit we have a 6,000 chip in it.
So it's restricted. I think the whole point of this series, it's for 10 to 16-year-olds. It is a transitional series to help kids transition from the smaller cars that you were racing to the full-size cars, give you that experience before you move up into what they call the Pro Series.
And racing with the big boys.
Right.
Which they say big boys, but some of them are pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
You have others, like you see them, they save their gear, and then you have other ones just...
So in the Junior Late Model Series last year, I think there was 3 ladies that competed consistently. There was
Olivia Mankey
and
Lily Mead.
Tell us how your first year went.
I mean, we started off pretty good. We finished 6th the first race, and then come out, and the second race, somebody decides that they want to smash the whole front end of their car into the back of Robbie Neely's car. So that kind of set the mood for everything, mostly for that race, since the radio was pretty much done. We did have one of the gauges in there for my water temp. It went a little crazy, so finally figured out, we might need a new one. And then we had some pretty solid 8th, 9th place finishes, and then every once in a while you have one of those bad races. I feel like we've had that big time this year, but we had a lot of those bad races last year, and the car was kind of out of our hands. Like, we couldn't find what was wrong with it, so finally we kind of just gave up and got the new car.
So let me stop you there. You had a very consistent year last year. There were typically 20, 21 cars that started the race, and you finished. Where did you finish in the points?
We finished 7th in the points.
Yes. So you were consistent, almost dead consistent, 8th, 9th.
We stayed, and I think we showed that we were kind of there. And then we proved that we could stay in the top 10 for sure, considering there were like about 23 cars almost every race.
And you were the highest qualifying young lady and the highest finishing young lady in your first year out, and the other ladies had been racing there several years. And the cars that were beating you were either professionally backed cars or teams that had more money. They were self-funded in some cases, but so last year was a really good year. And what happened for this year? Because what did you need to do in order to compete up front?
For sure we need to upgrade our equipment because we didn't. I wouldn't say we had a terrible car because it could have been worse, but we didn't have the car that needed to be up front, and I felt like if it would have been up front, it would have fallen off like really fast because the equipment just wasn't there, and I don't think we had the funds like we did this year, considering that we were halfway through a pandemic right now. But we were kind of getting up there, and we finally figured it out the last race. But I think we are 8 races too short figuring it out, so. Finally, we started looking at Shepard's car and somehow talked into getting it.
So she's talking about Buddy Shepard and his father, Dick Shepard. And Buddy has won a ton of races and championships with this particular car. And so you were able to get that car. And this year has been completely different. Explain how it's different for you.
It's honestly like really different. Mostly the first race to be somebody might have choked. They missed a shift. Started third, missed a shift. Initial restart. Don't try it. But yeah, it was for sure different. We've been qualifying better. I think we've qualified. Other than last race, we've qualified in the top 6, top 3 easily. We've qualified in the top 6, which is the car draw, but last race, everyone was right there. We were all running very, very close times, and then we didn't really have the car for last race, but I think overall it's been way better. And obviously our finishers have showed it how the car is qualifying, because I wasn't really good at qualifying. This was last year. I think we would qualify like 11th.
Right.
I think that's maybe the best we qualified, or maybe like 10th last year. And we qualified second. We broke track record once.
Yeah.
And then happened to be broken the same day.
Yeah. So you have been top 3 in practice on Fridays. You have been consistently top 3, top 4 in qualifying. Like you said, the last race, you qualified 7th, but then everybody is picking up their game. They're getting better. But from watching you, there's only 2 other cars that are as good, if not slightly better than you. That's the 22 and the 04 car. So you 3 are the class of the field, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people see that. You just hadn't had the finishes. You did have a second, which equaled the best finish that a woman has finished in that series. And everybody needs to understand that Kercie is racing in a series at a track where Haley Deegan got her start on asphalt. So Kercie is actually running better and finishing better than Haley Deegan has. So the goal, what is your goal?
For this year, like, overall.
Either.
Oh, you were planning on me asking you a question, were you? Overall, for sure, we're trying to make it in the NASCAR. I feel like that's why everyone races, is hopefully to make it to like the biggest level they can get to. But right now, for sure looking for just a win right now. Maybe next year a championship, or like maybe finishing some top 3s in the pros, try racing the pros and see how well that goes. But until we finally, or like get the funds or anything to actually talk about making it all the way up there, it's right now just a few small things and hopefully seeing how far that gets us.
Okay. So I want to kind of wrap this up, but the whole group, the whole point of this interview is to introduce you to the Women in Motorsports Making Waves group, which we have over 1,200 members, mostly women who are working in the industry either as drivers or publicists or mechanics or whatever, and we have women from all over the world. Right now, this year, there are typically anywhere from 5 to 6 women running in the series that you're running in. but you're the highest finishing lady in the field, by far probably the strongest one. In the rest of the group is guys. What kind of experiences have you had, good or bad, as a girl competing against guys? I mean, what's that like?
I mean, they don't treat you differently. Just be like, oh, she's a girl, so she's just gonna drive us different. I feel like we all pretty much like drive each other the same, and I feel like that's a good thing. Like mostly you see like a bunch of guys just be like, oh, she doesn't know how to drive because she's a girl, which I feel like everyone, when we started racing in the juniors or like overall, like none of them have just been like, you're not allowed to race because you're a girl. And I feel like it's honestly welcoming because all of them are kind of like, you're up there with us and you're running. And I feel like most of them, they might respect us more,
right,
because we are females. So that's just something that they're going to do. But overall, like, they drive us the same. They might drive us a little nicer, not just like push us out of the way. But normally, like, if we're side by side, it's going to be the same no matter what. There might be a little door slamming, there might not be. It kind of depends on,
right,
if you, like, however you're going to drive them, that's how you're going to get it back.
cool. I know you. I don't know how much time you spent. How familiar are you with the group, the Women in Motorsports group?
I see a lot of posts on there, and I'm not a fan of reading, but I read most of them. Not that good at reading. But I do read most of them, and I look at all the pictures that you guys post. So I'm familiar with it. I'm not, like, 100%, like, I know everything in there, but
Sure.
I do know a lot about it.
So, does it surprise you that there are a lot of women in motorsports?
A little bit, because normally you just have people, like, it's a male-dominated sport, like, you guys aren't allowed to be in it. So when I first, like, got introduced to the group, it was honestly, like, it was really cool. I was kind of, like, I wouldn't say, like, I forgot. Anyways,
Okay.
I was kind of, like, I was interested in it because, like, I didn't know, like, out of, like, Bakersfield or, like, anywhere in California, you didn't, like, oh, there's, like, somebody in, like, 4 hours away. Like, you wouldn't just
Right.
be like, oh, like, there's a female racing. Like, I wouldn't know that. So then when I got introduced to the group, I was like, that's honestly very cool.
Cool. So, one last thing. You have a lot of fans, and I know right now we aren't allowed to have fans in the stands, but last year you had a lot of fans, and you had a lot of little girls that cheer you on. What's that like to you? I mean, because whether you realize it or not, you are a role model, and these kids look, I mean, you're in some respects a kid,
Very much so.
teenager, but you have these young kids that are looking at you and realizing that you're doing something that they really enjoy. So what's that mean to you, and what kind of advice would you give any of these kids?
It honestly, like, means a lot to me that they're all like, you can do it, like, you got it. So a big, like, piece of advice I would give to them is, if they honestly want to do it, then try talking their parents into it, because it's a blast, and you meet a lot of new people in there. And, like, even though, like, I'm in high school, like, I'm not very social outside of racing, so most of my friends come from the track or anyone that's, like, involved around racing. Like, even if it's just people in the stands, like, those are normally where, like, I meet people and, like, we have a great connection from. So I would say, like, if they honestly wanted to do it, that they could do it.
Cool. So tell everybody about how they can follow you online.
We have a Facebook. I believe we have a Twitter. We do have an Instagram. My personal page is just my first and last name, which is Kercie Jung. Every other one is Kercie Jung Racing. And I think everyone else's personal connected to Kercie Jung Racing is on Kercie Jung Racing itself.
Yeah. And It's KerciejUng.
It's pronounced very weird.
Racing.com. That's her website. And she also has a YouTube channel. So all her videos, and there's hundreds of hours of video up there. It's crazy. So she's got it covered. Follow her. And good luck this coming Saturday. We're going to be on your car. I hope you win. That would be very cool, because people all over the world are going to know about it if you do. And thank you for allowing me to take some time and interview you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.